7 News, the voice of the Central West.
The region in the grips of an addiction epidemic tonight. The government's plan to fix it. Orchardists no longer getting first pick of essential workers.
I'm Ruben Spargo. Later this news hour, a defiant Donald Trump is gearing up for his re-election fight, and the King and Queen are heading to Australia later this year.
7 News begins now.
Good evening. Councillors say the region's in the grips of an addiction epidemic. It comes as the state government prescribes millions of dollars to tackle the issue. Now, in just a matter of weeks, Orange will have a new treatment centre to help those who are doing it tough.
Near Orange's CBD, a modest building that will soon have a far-reaching impact.
For Orange, Bathurst and Cowra, operating out of Orange, we'll be able to coordinate care for people who suffer from alcohol and other drugs issues.
We will be able to take on those clients that have been falling through the gaps in past history.
Alcohol and drugs counsellor Sharon Bennett is on the front line.
As years have gone on, it's just grown. It's become almost like an epidemic, I believe. That's my personal belief.
Spending years tackling a problem she says has never been this bad.
In addiction with ice, it would probably be the primary ever since that's come into. I mean, I know it's been around for 30 years. However, it's just continually grown.
With hope, a new dedicated treatment centre run by the Orange Aboriginal Medical Service will address just that.
It's about highlighting that our people who suffer from alcohol and other drugs need additional care.
Committed team with lived experience who know what it's like to be in that position.
If we don't address the social and emotional well-being, housing, employment, education, then we're still going to have those issues.
Underpinning this investment is the announcement of a statewide drug summit. Now, that will be held later in the year, where the government's aim is to create a united consensus on tackling addiction.
Our people move. They relocate, so wherever they're going to, there will be a model of practice that will be established wherever they go to.
A project the region and the state is counting on. Declan Milton, 7 News.
Well, a recent budget decision has left local growers up in arms, and without an alternative, the impacts could be critical.
It was a system helping local growers connect with workers. Now it's been axed by the federal government.
It feels like it's an example of the industry being ignored and neglected.
In the latest May budget, the federal government seized the Harvest Trail and Information Service programs from June 30 in a bid to save $47.3 million over 5 years. A decision orchardists claim they were blindsided by.
Had no idea, and disappointing to hear that we've lost that support from the government. Here at Borrowdale, we really appreciated and use that facilities quite often.
Louisa says without the program, it's going to be even harder to find seasonal pickers during busy harvesting periods.
Very disappointing, and almost a bit like we were being left behind.
The program was helping thousands of backpackers and job seekers find work, and in return, producers were able to get the job done.
That's good. It's a good place. A bit coldy by the time now, but it's a good place, and you get just to be a bit occupied, and that's all right.
When it comes to cherry picking and pruning of grapevines, it's all dependent on the weather. That's why Louisa says having a system in place to find the workers during those unpredictable times was vital.
That unreliability in the weather is problematic for workers out in the field when they're doing field work. So we do need to have a big pull.
Lauren Evans, 7 News.
Well, explosive new revelations have been heard in a Supreme Court murder trial as an intimate partner of Robert Jeeves gave evidence. Robert Jeeves, along with his wife Anne Jeeves, have both pleaded not guilty to murdering Amber Haig in 2002. Today, the court heard Robert also fathered a third child after the teenager disappeared.
Argumentative, disrespectful and terse. That's how the Crown prosecutor, defence and judge described the tone of witness Ursula Kirk in court today. Ms Kirk is the former girlfriend of Robert Jeeves and the mother of what is believed to be his youngest child. The court heard the pair were in an intimate relationship between 2008 and 2015 before Mr. Jeeves left their Harden home to move back in with his wife and co-accused Anne Jeeves. The former couple remain in close contact, however. Ms. Kirk told the court she received a phone call from Robert Jeeves from prison just last night. The court heard he also spoke to his son, who was born in 2013. Throughout their 7-year relationship and in the 9 years since, Ms. Kirk says the 2002 disappearance of Amber Haig has never come up in conversation. Robert Jeeves and his wife Anne are currently on trial for the murder of Amber Haig, but have both pleaded not guilty. Ursula Kirk was initially questioned by police in 2005, again at an inquest in 2011, and most recently today. The witness was asked to refresh her memory this morning by revising her previous statements, but declined to do so, telling the court that she didn't want to be there and had better things to do with her life. Robert Jeeves's oldest son, who he shares with co-accused Anne Jeeves, was also present in court today, but was not called upon to provide any further evidence. The trial continues tomorrow. Emily Francis, 7 News.
Well, the mental health of our farmers is in the spotlight tonight. It comes as this year's Farm Safety Week highlights the struggles our region still faces after years of natural disasters.
It's the silent crisis sweeping across our farms that this support centre is trying to amplify.
It always was really hard to, target those groups that we know need support.
Stephanie Robertson heads an industry where demand never flatlines.
It went up and up and up and up, and it stayed up. And, yes, there are always spikes when significant things happen, but it has stayed at that high level.
But while the crisis calls come in thick and fast, it's cracking into the country, which proves the biggest challenge.
Our rural farming communities, are very stoic communities. They're often like, no, we can do it on our own.
It's a common theme picked up by those closest to the land.
To ask for help is something that doesn't come naturally.
The charity Rural Aid are there on the ground when natural disasters strike.
Recovery from disaster events, it doesn't happen overnight, and it's not one paced.
While this Farm Safety Week looks at the physical challenges of agriculture, it's mental health which is a key focus. That's particularly as farmers recover from a gruelling few years of natural disasters.
That first conversation might be the hardest, but once you've had the conversation, all the good things flow from it. So the more often we talk about it, I think the better we'll all be for it.
It can be as simple as a conversation, but an important conversation that does sometimes ask some hard questions.
A question, though, which could save a life. Declan Milton, 7 News.
Well, there is $70 million on offer for the Central West Arana Renewable Energy Zone. The state government announcement came just weeks after the zone was approved. The Community and Employment Benefit Program will have 4 different types of grants. It's designed to support groups before construction starts on the zone. Grant writing workshops will be held to support anyone who wants to apply. Well, the road up Mount Canobolas is closed in all directions as the chance of snow lingers. Drivers are being advised to avoid the area as those wet and icy conditions hit the region. Weather forecasts are still showing the chance of snowfall over the coming days, both on the mountain and in Oberon. Well, speaking of snow, our resident weather expert Aspen is here now for a look at today's weather conditions. And Aspen, absolutely freezing start to the week out there today, wasn't it?
It certainly was, Nick. Resident weather expert, I love it. Good evening, everyone. A polar blast has well and truly arrived on the east coast, causing frost from Tasmania all the way up to the Darling Downs in Queensland. Today, we saw light snowfalls in and around Oberon, including Black Springs, Shooters Hill and Porter's Retreat. And as we just heard, there's also been some snow up the top of Mount Canobolas. Today was the coolest day of the year across much of the Central West. Temperatures reached just 4 degrees in Orange this afternoon. However, it felt like -5 degrees at midday with wind gusts up to 40 kilometres an hour. Now, more snow is on the way. I'll tell you the best place to see it right after sport. Next.
Sounds good, Aspen. We'll get more weather soon. Well, still to come in 7 News, a man cops a bite from a brown snake and he lives to tell the story. And the Bathurst Winter Festival cooks up something special to raise a glass to.
And a little later this news hour, Donald Trump prepares to accept the Republican nomination for president. Joe Biden calls for America to cool down in a rare address. Police make a shocking discovery in a car park, and the King and Queen's itinerary for their Australia visit revealed.
Welcome back. There were high spirits over the weekend at the Bathurst Winter Festival's Brew and Bite. The two-day event was a major highlight for revellers and, of course, local producers.
A taste of winter in the heart of Bathurst, where nearly 30,000 people spent their weekend enjoying a beverage to the sound of live music.
It's been an excellent time. People have really embraced the live music, grabbing a brew and grabbing a bit of food on the way.
Sponsored by Charles Sturt University, the Bathurst Winter Festival held its two-day Brew and Bite event over the weekend, showcasing some of the region's best wines, brews, ciders and spirits, as well as an array of food.
It features lots of local, regional and other producers coming into King's Parade to offer what they have.
2 regular wines and a mountain of mulled wine. So we didn't run out of mulled wine this year, which made a big difference.
For Samuel, he's been taking part in this festival from the beginning, but this year he says it was more important than ever to be involved.
We're always happy to be a part of it. It's generally our busiest day of the year. It's been, economically pretty tough the last 18 to 24 months. Well, wine's definitely a luxury item.
But of course, it wasn't all just food and wine. The event also included stilt walkers, professional ice skaters, fire dancers and local musicians.
So people can experience local, authentic experiences right here in Bathurst.
The Bathurst Winter Festival will run until July 21, with a range of activities still on offer. Lauren Evans, 7 News.
Well, a mechanic is told of his horror ordeal when he was bitten by a brown snake. Danny Allen says he would have died if it wasn't for an off-duty paramedic who arrived just in time.
This mechanic is no stranger when it comes to wrangling dangerous objects.
What on?
Danny Allen was catching frogs with his grandson when he got the shock of his life.
Just thought it was a stick, and then as the mattress went, I realised then the stick reared up and was about to bite me or Jaden. So I just naturally grabbed it with my left hand. It was just an instinct.
The 54-year-old was stuck in a wrestle with a 4-foot brown snake.
Managed to get it around the neck, and then it curled itself around my arm and its neck, which was fine. I'm not overly afraid of them, so I was just more in shock.
After releasing the snake, Mr. Allen told his daughter something felt off. He began slipping in and out of consciousness. With his heart rate slowing, time was of the essence.
Hun, I'm here.
We can hear us, all right.
Can you hear me?
Emergency services told the family they'll have to wait for the next available ambulance. An off-duty paramedic heard the notification on his drive home from dinner.
I've said I'll proceed in my own vehicle at that stage because night shift would be logging on in about 15 minutes. Proceeded on scene to find the male patient was quite unwell, looking quite poorly perfused, seeing people that weren't there and showing, exhibiting all signs of severe envenomation.
Fire and rescue arrived on scene, lending a hand loading him into the back of the paramedic's car. After 12 hours in emergency and a handful of days recovering in intensive care, Mr. Allen is back on the tools but won't be fully recovered for another 12 months. He says he wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for his heroes in uniform.
I probably would just fell over and no one would have known that I got bitten by a snake. So it was really good. So it's just, thank you to everybody. I really appreciate it.
Sometimes few and far between getting the thanks, but it is definitely nice to hear.
Phoebe Worthley, 7 News.
Wow. Well, up next in sport, the Park Spacemen flying high on the Peter McDonald Premiership ladder. And the Mudgee Dragons help the Blues prepare for their Origin decider. Welcome back. As the New South Wales Blues prepare for the Origin decider on Wednesday, they've called on some bush footy teams to lend them a hand. And the Mudgee Dragons were more than happy to answer the call.
When New South Wales Rugby League asked the Mudgee Dragons if they were free for an opposed session ahead of this week's Origin decider, the answer was simple.
I said, give me half an hour, I'll see if I've got any interest, and within 5 minutes, I had 20 blokes put their hands up.
The Dragons meeting some of the game's best in the Blue Mountains for a training session to remember.
Went through our training session like we normally would back home, and the difference was that, we had our Origin stars in front of us.
But not just in front of them. A couple of Dubbo juniors lined up with the Dragons.
They sort of rotated their boys in with us. We had Matt Burton, Connor Watson, blokes like that on our side for the majority of the session, so it was really good.
And the Blues didn't hold back.
Madge sort of said, the boys will look after you, and then halfway through the session he come up and said we might get the boys to ramp it up. You're doing really well. So it got harder, but I think the boys took a lot out of it.
No, we really appreciate these guys coming up and giving their time. We know, they're not doing it for money. They're doing it for love of the game and for love of the state to help us try and beat our best on Wednesday.
The Dragons are leading the Peter McDonald Premiership, and now this session has motivated them to lift as they head towards finals.
Well, we trained with a high intensity with the New South Wales Blues. Let's take that back to the competition now and take things from what we learned and put it into our game.
The session will make watching the Origin decider a different experience for the Dragons.
It'll hit the boys when they're watching the game on Wednesday night. They'll be sitting there saying, we're only training with these guys 3 or 4 days ago.
And if the Blues win, will Mudgee take any credit?
We're going to claim it, for sure.
Michelle Cook, 7 News.
And while the Dragons were helping the Blues in their quest for orange glory, the Peter McDonald Premiership played out the second half of its split round. Park Spacemen ensuring they're still in the hunt for finals.
Park Spacemen went into the round 11 clash with Nyngan looking to hold on to second place on the Premiership ladder. Jake Porter delivering a run from dummy half to earn the hosts' first points. Chad Porter adding the extras before delivering a kick to winger Jacob Smead to give the Spacemen a 10-0 lead. Minutes later, it was Smead showing off his kicking abilities, but Riley Scott couldn't quite make the grounding. The Spacemen didn't squander their next opportunity when the Tigers' goal line dropout only just made the 10 metres. Joseph Dwyer's fancy footwork catching out the defence as Parks extended their lead to 16. But Nyngan kept fighting. Second rower Corey Cox busting over the line before Cooper Black was able to pounce on the ball. The second half started with solid defence, first from Parks, then Nyngan. Nyngan levelled the game, first with Cox crashing over, before another 4-pointer had the Tigers on the prowl. The Spacemen responded, Chad Porter diving over the line, before more points pushed their lead out to 12. The Tigers tried to claw their way back when Cox bagged his second. But when Jordan Pope ran into space, Parks made sure they held on to second spot on the ladder.
We made it a bit hard on ourselves. I thought it was obviously wet weather footy and a few drop balls, a few silly errors, but we're just happy to come away with the 2 points in the end.
The Tigers still content with their performance.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how we ended. At the start, we kind of struggled a bit, but I think we kind of found our feet.
In other results, Dubbo Sims accounted for Wellington, while Dubbo Macquarie down Forbes. Michelle Cook, 7 News.
A Woodbridge Cup derby has gone down to the wire in a nail-biting clash. Manildra were able to come out on top by just 2 points in their battle with Molong. Some other Woodbridge Cup results were also pretty one-sided. Competition heavyweights Cowler and Canowindra were both able to record strong victories to keep them in the premiership hunt. Meanwhile, Ugara and Peakhill also joined the winners list in round 13. Meanwhile, Castlereagh League Coolah have cemented themselves at the top of the competition ladder with a 52-point victory over Canamble. Cobar also ran in more than 50 points in their win against Gulgong. The latest result kept those two sides leading the field, but Narromine, Gulgong and Coonabarabran are in a three-way battle for the last places in the top four, and that's with only 2 rounds left to play. Up next in 7 News, Aspen's back and he's got your local weather forecast, everything you need to know. That's
So again, this week looks set to be the coldest week of the year, so let's see what's happening across the east coast. Now, strong southerly winds are dragging up cold polar air from the Antarctic all the way up to Queensland. A high pressure system will quickly follow in its path, prolonging this cold outbreak. A frost and damaging winds aren't the only things that are likely. We're also expecting a return of that wet weather. Orange could receive up to 20 millimetres of rain, most likely around lunchtime tomorrow. Now, tomorrow looks to be a repeat of today. Southwesterly winds up to 45 kilometres per hour in the morning will keep temperatures in the single digits for much of the central tablelands. Rain should arrive around 9 a.m. Orange could see some snow flurries from 10 a.m, but Oberon remains your best bet with a few centimetres likely in the afternoon, a top of just 9 degrees in Cowra and 6 in Lithgow. Wednesday, we'll see temperatures back in line with our winter averages. We could even see some sunshine across the Central West. Medium chance of showers, most likely in the morning, a top of 11 degrees in Dubbo, 10 for Parkes and Lithgow, just 6 degrees in Orange. Thursday should see a return to cool temperatures with winds up to 30 kilometres per hour. A slight chance of rain across the region with snow possible above 1,100 metres. Overnight temperatures getting down to 0 degrees in both Bathurst and Lithgow, 2 degrees in Mudgee. Dubbo, below the July average over the next 7 days, getting down to just -1 on Friday morning. Blue skies from Sunday through the rest of next week. Orange looks even colder. Unlikely to crack double digits over the next 7 days. Some good news though, sunshine forecast for Friday after a very cold start to the day.
Aspen, it's so cold. We're just going to need to stay inside and watch Bridgerton, 7 News, whatever's happening on TV. I'm not going outside.
Get your Netflix out.
That is your local news for tonight. Thanks for watching. You can always catch up on 7plus. Right now, Ruben Spargo has your latest national news. Enjoy your night. We'll see you tomorrow at 6. See you then.
This is 7 News, the voice of the coast.
Tonight, a close call for those on board a yacht in Port Macquarie. A dramatic sea rescue off Byron Bay. How a smartwatch saved a life.
I'm Ruben Spargo. Later this news hour, a defiant Donald Trump is gearing up for his re-election fight, and the King and Queen are heading to Australia later this year.
7 News begins now.
Good evening. There's been a lucky escape for a group of passengers on board a yacht in Port Macquarie. The vessel was heading over the town beach bar when it capsized in rough seas.
On its side and surrounded by larger swell while attempting to cross the Port Macquarie bar. This is the moment this yacht and its passengers almost ended up underwater. Lifeguards stopping the recording as they prepared to rush to their aid.
Well, we were on. Super close call for us. Obviously, we did think that we were on in that video. You can hear it. Really close call.
Miraculously, the boat was able to correct itself despite the near miss. The recovery captured by another witness. Lifeguards amazed no one needed to be rescued.
We looked through the binoculars and we could see that everyone was happy and, hugging and shaking hands and stuff like that. So we know that everyone was all good.
It wasn't the only bar incident this weekend. One man died and another was rescued after a boat capsized at Tweed Heads. Plus, there have been a string of near misses on the Port Macquarie bar alone.
The guards are always on watch up in that tower. Whenever they see a boat come in, they're always keeping a close eye on them. There's been so many close calls, and when that one actually went on its side, the guards were ready to spring into action.
A build-up of sand creating unpredictable and often dangerous conditions. It's triggered warnings about checking conditions before heading out and logging on with marine rescue.
They actually put themselves at risk because they were inside the river first, and the bar conditions being bad, they still decided to go out, then come back in, which put themselves at risk and everybody else.
Samantha Crowe, 7 News.
Well, a swimmer got more than he bargained for when he was swept out to sea off the coast of Broken Head. Rick Sherman was treading water when he used his smartwatch to call 000.
Winched to safety after an hour in the water. Swept out by rough seas nearly 1 kilometre off Broken Head, Byron Bay swimmer Rick Sherman started treading water when he couldn't get back to shore.
This man did really well just going with the swell, going with the current. It sounds like he's just floated out the back.
After exhausting all attempts to swim in, Rick called 000 from his smartwatch, a smart move which saved his life.
Very lucky. I feel like we probably wouldn't have got found otherwise.
Yeah. I'm probably going to buy one,
Emergency services jumped into action, safely returning the 49-year-old to the beach. Broken Head Beach is notorious for large swells. Regular swimmers and surfers say it's always a challenge.
Yeah, pretty out of control. If you weren't like a good swimmer or surfer, I probably should not be in the water at all.
Like Saturday was, I struggled a bit more. Like I had to be aware of if the set is coming.
Saturday's incident has prompted a warning from Surf Lifesaving, reminding people to check conditions before entering the water.
So like you're going to get a lot more incidents over in those open beaches too, where people won't be able to see you. You might be the only person on the beach for hundreds of metres. So if you do get into trouble, unfortunately, you might be on your own there.
Another tragedy prevented. Elise Holden, 7 News.
Well, a polar blast has brought some pretty chilly conditions to the Barrington Tops, with snow a real possibility over the next 48 hours. Hannah Hardup joins us live now. And Hannah, snow chasers have already reported a light dusting.
Nick, people have already begun flocking to the Barrington Tops, with snow flurries expected to continue overnight and into tomorrow. Photos in the area are already showing promising conditions for the week. While this week's fall is not expected to be as big as previous years, the Bureau of Meteorology are expecting snow to fall below 1,200 metres.
We're not expecting huge snowfall totals. It will depend on just where those showers do form, but certainly a couple of flurries will certainly be very welcome.
Local authorities are reminding people to stay safe on the roads, especially during the early hours of the morning when black ice could potentially cause serious danger.
Yeah, that certainly is some very good advice. Thanks, Hannah. That's Hannah Hardup reporting live for us there. Well, speaking of all things weather and snow, Aspen joins us now for a look at today's conditions. And Aspen, it's been cold, but we have seen some sunshine.
It certainly was, Nick. Classic winter's day today. Good evening, everyone. A polar blast has well and truly arrived on the east coast, causing frost from Tasmania all the way up to the Darling Downs in Queensland. Snow has fallen in Guyra, just over the ranges, with more on the way for the Barrington Tops. Now, today was one of the coolest days, of the year on the mid-north coast. Temperatures reached just 16 degrees in Taree this afternoon. However, it felt like 10 degrees with strong southerly winds. Temperatures were cool on the northern rivers as well, a top of 18 degrees in Ballina, 17 for Byron and 10 for Tenterfield. Tomorrow's forecast will be even colder. I'll have all the details after sport.
Even colder. Okay, Aspen, we'll see you soon for more weather. Well, a driver's had a lucky escape after his ute and trailer flipped and rolled along the Pacific motorway in Tweed Heads. Dashcam captures the moment the vehicle swerved into the left-hand lane to try to avoid hitting a vehicle in front of it. Drivers stopped to assist the man. Racing to his aid, paramedics were called to the scene at around 11 o'clock yesterday. Surprisingly, no one was injured. A Tweed Heads man who threatened to kill former political staffer Brittany Higgins, her husband and her dog will have to wait to learn his punishment. David William Wanacott was arrested by anti-terror police last year. He was due to be sentenced today, but that was delayed. His defence asked for an adjournment for a psychiatric report. Wanacott is now due to be sentenced in November. Until then, he'll remain in the community on bail. Well, there's been a major backlash over big budget cuts to emergency services. The state government now under massive scrutiny for stripping millions of dollars from frontline workers.
When it comes to floods and fire down under, it's not a matter of if, but when. But emergency services claim crumbling infrastructure is making life tough on the front lines.
We've got a ridiculously ageing fleet that are constantly broken down, and we've got a lot of stations that need upgrades that now aren't fit for purpose.
It's estimated the SES budget has been slashed by 17%. The RFS is down over $50 million. The funding shortfall leaving some gaping holes in day-to-day operations.
RFS members are occasionally using their mobile phone lights because the issued lights are not strong enough to work in the dark, and that's obviously a real safety concern for RFS volunteers.
The union estimating over $35 million in cuts to fire and rescue.
And what that will mean is that we may not make it to an incident, and therefore minutes lost and maybe lives lost.
The service claims an $800 million shortfall in capital expenditure is making it tough to recruit, especially women.
Which means they're not fit for purpose. We don't have women's change rooms, women's facilities, which obviously is then hard for us to recruit.
The coalition calling on the Minns government to reassess its funding priorities, especially heading into the warmer months when things can change quickly.
The SES and RFS are underpinned by volunteers, but they need an operating budget behind them to make sure that they can do the work that they're doing.
This Penny 7 News.
Well, in less than 2 months, residents will decide who they want on their local council. And those on the Mid-Coast say that there's one key issue they'll be considering when they head to the polls.
They have a reputation that needs no introduction. This election, there's one thing at the forefront of voters' minds.
Potholes in the roads. They're everywhere.
The condition of the road, attention to detail of the roads and repair of the street signs.
New South Wales local government elections will be held September 14. In the Mid-Coast LGA, residents will vote for 11 councillors to represent the needs of the community.
It shapes the next 4 years, so the term is a 4-year term, so people that have an interest in their local community, a genuine interest, it's really, really important to support them and get involved.
While some locals are content with council's progress,
I think they do a pretty good job. We can always find things to complain about, but we often don't find the good things.
Others want to see more support in the smaller communities that sit on the outskirts of the LGA, especially when it comes to roads.
Because half of our property is in Scone Shire, half's in Mid-Coast. So we are the final extremity. And as you say, we're forgotten about up there.
Just about anyone can become a candidate in these upcoming elections. Mid-Coast Council will be holding information sessions regarding this opportunity over the next few weeks, with nominations to close August 14.
Come and observe the council meeting, see if it's for you, and just join us at the information session afterwards.
Hannah Hartup, 7 News.
Well, up next in 7 News, the Australian Surf title set to return at the end of this month. And a 99-year-old Coffs Harbour tap dancer proving that age is just a number.
And a little later this news hour, Donald Trump prepares to accept the Republican nomination for president. Joe Biden calls for America to cool down in a rare address. Police make a shocking discovery in a car park, and the King and Queen's itinerary for their Australia visit revealed.
The Taree sleeper bus will arrive in the Manning before the end of the year. The bus, which helps people who are sleeping rough, is currently being refurbished. Once completed, it will be parked overnight at the Chapman Place car park, providing temporary accommodation for up to 20 people who are facing homelessness. The sleeper bus committee are seeking business sponsors and volunteers to support the project. It's currently estimated to cost $50,000 a year to operate. Preparations are now well underway for the upcoming Australian Surfing Championships. The event will be hosted in Port Macquarie, with a number of locals expected to line up.
The country's pinnacle surfing event back on the mid-north coast. The Australian Surf Championships hit the coastline on the 31st of July.
Yeah, we're bringing the event back in an 8-day format to the beautiful Port Macquarie, an area that has so many different wave wave profiles, different wave breaks.
The event will incorporate the shortboard, parasurfing and bodyboarding Australian titles. Former pro surfer and coach Wayne Hudson says it's a great opportunity, not just for competitors, but spectators as well.
It's really good for the future generation to see they can continue surfing to the 60, 65 kind of thing, and also see the best surfers, the Opens in Australia. So, our national titles at the Open level is pretty prestigious.
Plus, the event will bring hundreds to the region over its 8 days.
They're all staying overnight, eating, dining, tourist attractions. So it's a really big boost for the local economy and those businesses through the winter period.
A number of locals have qualified, and local board riding clubs have also been given wildcard positions. The primary location for the event will be Bonny Hills, with backup locations throughout Port Macquarie and the Camden Haven. The region selected because of the waves on offer.
Film the waves behind me, you'll see what it's going to be like. Hopefully it's cooking.
Samantha Crowe, 7 News.
A 99-year-old tap dancer from Coffs Harbour is on the fast track to become a YouTube sensation. Lorraine Campbell took up tap dancing 30 years ago. She was 70 years old and she's showing no signs of slowing down. Tap dancing her way to popularity and personal health and fitness.
No sign of stopping, and everyone looks after Lorraine in the class. We all cater to her so that she's going to be here for a long time in our classes.
Now, Lorraine's only disappointment is that she'll miss a visit from our English monarch, arriving on our shores just a few days after her 100th birthday.
Unfortunately, King Charles is coming out on the 18th of November, so it's a bit late for my party.
He's going to miss it.
Undoubtedly, the show will go on. The Manning Valley Concert Band have taken audiences to Europe with their mid-year community concert titled Viva la Musica. The 30-piece ensemble performance at the St John's Anglican Church was accompanied by local entertainer George Hode. The group playing timeless classics, including La Vie en Rose and The Can-Can. Up next in 7 News, the final day of the state junior surf titles in Coffs Harbour. And a Northern Rivers breakdancer prepares to jet off to the Paris Olympics. Welcome back. Casuarina teenager Jeff Dunn is perfecting his sets ahead of the Paris Olympics. The 17-year-old leaves in just 3 weeks to compete against the best of the best in breakdancing.
Jeff Dunn was made for the dance floor, whether he's competing on a stage or concrete. The 17-year-old has been training hard 6 days a week, ready to leave for the Paris Olympics in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, I'm feeling way more excited than I am nervous, but yeah, we'll just have to see on the day. I'm going to do my absolute best and just give it everything I got.
Jeff's been tweaking sets, pumping iron and resting ahead of the big event.
It's just been really intense, just going through all my sets, all my tricks and all that, just drilling all through the things I need to get to know.
Mum Rhonda says it's a stressful time for the family, but they're eager to get to Paris.
Super excited. Well, actually, I think we're still feeling like it's surreal.
The Olympics wasn't something Jeff thought he would ever get to.
I never knew breaking was going to get to this point, so for breaking to be able to get to this point, it's extremely good, and I'm so honoured to be able to not represent Australia, but to represent my family, my friends, and the culture.
He's aiming for gold, and he's confident he can get there after a recent win in Birmingham, UK.
It's my first overseas competition I ever won, which is extremely good.
Now all that's left is to pack the bags.
Trying to get enough baggage and luggage, and I've just had to order new luggage to get ourselves there.
The making of a potential gold medalist breakdancer. Elise Holden, 7 News.
Peak conditions were on offer in Coffs Harbour for the final day of the New South Wales Junior State titles. The giant swell shifting to the south for the deciding round.
The reigning national champion in the under-14s, Lakana Cullen, got off to an uninspiring start in the junior state semi-final, taking a tumble on his second turn.
Yeah, but at the start I kind of fell on my first wave and I hurt my leg.
Resurrecting his prospects with a couple of powerful turns, scoring 8.67. The 14-year-old on a roll since taking out the Coffs Grommets title.
And then we went to the Okigron comp, I got second in that. And then I did Skull Candy and I won that too.
His closest rival tumbling out of contention, a buzzer beater in the closing 30 seconds, sealing his spot for a 4-point win in the under-14s final. The 3 to 4 foot waves showcasing the junior talent after days of giant East Coast swell.
Probably 5 to 6 foot, but it's a ground swell, so there's a lot more energy in the water, a lot more period, so it was definitely sizable.
14-year-old Lani Cancross sticking to the game plan in the under-16s final, moving off the bank at the base of the Macaulay's headland.
There were some good waves coming through there, but my plan wasn't to sit there because I kind of fizzled out and went fat. I just went down the beach a bit more.
Mid-North Coast surfers featuring at the pointy end of the tournament to gain selection at the Nationals in Wollongong in November.
And then also in the under-16 boys, we had Max McGillivray. He went back-to-back wins after a Skull Candy event in Landix Head. So it's really cool to see some talent just shining through.
Coffs Harbour to host the high school state titles tomorrow, another qualifying round for the Aussie final. Liz Penny, 7 News.
Wollongbar Alstonville have knocked Byron Bay off top spot on the far north coast rugby union ladder. Saturday's game pushed them to 10 points ahead after a win against Casino, 59-12. Casuarina Beach also surprised, jumping to second place on the ladder after beating Lismore 50-14. Byron Bay and Ballina battled it out. It was a pretty tough match to start with, only 8 points on the scoreboard, but it was Byron who took out the game 23-0. The team also secured third on the ladder. Well, temperatures dropping to just 2 degrees in some parts as that cold snap continues. Up next, Aspen has your local weather forecast.
Hello again. This week looks set to be the coldest week of the year, so let's see what's happening across the east coast. Strong southerly winds are dragging up cold polar air from the Antarctic all the way up to Queensland. A high pressure system will quickly follow in its path, prolonging the cold outbreak. While much of the state receives a dumping of snow and rain, we should remain relatively dry, the odd shower or two on the mid-north coast and the northern rivers. Now, snow is likely in Walker and the Barrington Tops overnight, beginning in about an hour's time. Overnight temperatures dropping to just 2 degrees in Dorrigo and 4 degrees in Kempsey. Mostly sunny in the Manning Valley and northern rivers. Wind gusts up to 40 kilometres per hour in Byron Bay, 17 the top in Coffs Harbour. On the waters now, season swells around 2 to 3 metres, I should say. A strong wind warning has been issued for Byron, Coffs and Port Macquarie. Gale force winds are expected further south in the Hunter Valley. Those heavy winds should die down on Wednesday. Clear blue skies up and down the coast. Temperatures in the mid to late teens, cracking 20 degrees. Not quite 20 degrees, 19 degrees in Grafton, a top of 18 in Lismore. Some cloud about on Thursday, snow still possible on the Barrington Tops. Mostly sunny with some cloud about on the northern rivers. That should keep overnight temperatures in the double digits in Byron Bay, waking up to just 11 degrees on Thursday, warming up to 17. 19 the top in both Evans Head and Grafton. Mostly sunny in Lismore, 18 degrees. Looks set to be quite a nice week, if not a little cold.
It's very cold indeed, Aspen. In fact, it's too cold. It's a nice time to stay inside and watch TV.
You're lucky I'm here.
Thank you. That's your local news for tonight. You can always catch up on our website or at 7+. Right now, Ruben Spargo has your latest national news. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night, and we'll be back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. We'll see you then.
Tonight, a man arrested over a shooting incident in the southwest. A teenager charged over a crash that killed a rising AFL player. WA's early warning weather system gets an overhaul. and how we're helping to ease the national trucking shortage.
7 News begins now.
Good evening. Police have arrested a 34-year-old man in relation to a shooting in the southwest. Josiah McMeekin has the details.
Reuben, Tactical Response Group officers and Bunbury detectives have been searching for a man after a firearm incident happened yesterday morning in Collie. Police received a call at about 8:15 a.m. after reports a man had been shot on Clifton Street. The man in his 30s received gunshot wounds to his hands and attended Collie Hospital. It's believed both men are known to each other and the incident was not a random event. Following a public appeal for information and a day of searching, police took a 34-year-old man into custody at Eton this afternoon. Reuben.
Thanks, Josiah. Josiah McMeekin there. Tributes are pouring in for a young Perth footballer killed in a weekend crash that left another 6 people injured. Nick Campo grew up in Kalgoorlie. One of his teammates is fighting for life in Royal Perth Hospital, and the teenage driver has been charged by police. Nick Overall reports.
It's clear from the tributes being laid here today just how much Nick Campo meant to the people who knew him, both those from his school and the many he played sport with. The 18-year-old South Fremantle Colts player was a passenger in a ute with 4 other friends on Saturday night when it rolled and crashed into another car on Farrington Road in North Lake. Nick died at the scene. His school saying there are no adequate words to express our grief and sympathy around the loss of this wonderful young man. Psychology staff will be available for boys wishing to access support. One of Nick's teammates, 18-year-old Tyler Rowe, remains in a critical condition in the intensive care unit at Royal Perth Hospital. The other 3 teenagers who were in the car are stable. 2 people in their 20s who were in the other vehicle were left with minor injuries. Today, the 17-year-old driver of the ute faced court on multiple charges, including dangerous driving occasioning death and occasioning grievous bodily harm. He was granted bail under multiple conditions, including that he doesn't operate a motor vehicle. He will face court again on September 10th. Meanwhile, flowers continue to be laid here at the crash site on Farrington Road as family and friends mourn a teenager who had his whole life ahead of him.
There have been 3 other fatal crashes in regional WA. A 39-year-old motorcycle rider died in Flint on Saturday morning after hitting a tree on an off-road track. In our Midwest, a 73-year-old man was killed when his ute left the road and struck a tree on Northwest Coastal Highway. And yesterday, a 62-year-old man died in Jurien Bay after his ute veered off Indian Ocean Drive and crashed. A former Catholic priest has been charged with the physical and sexual assault of a 9-year-old girl at a remote mission 4 decades ago. He was escorted by church officials when he faced court in Perth today.
Well, up until last week, Father Ray Hevern was heavily involved with this southern suburbs parish. Today, the 82-year-old walked from court charged with the sexual assault of a 9-year-old girl. These charges relate to a 9-year-old girl. How are you going to respond to the allegations? The charges are historical. The victim alleges she was abused by Father Hevern while at the Wandalgu Hostel, a Catholic mission near Geraldton, in the mid-1980s. Detectives from the Sex Assault Squad have charged the priest with a long list of offences, including 14 counts of indecent treatment of a child. When the Perth magistrate asked the 82-year-old if he understood the charges, he hesitated and looked to his lawyer for guidance before finally responding yes. Hevern did not enter a plea. Is there nothing at all you want to say to all of the parishioners that have followed you these so many years? Do they not deserve a response? 7 News can confirm that despite the charges, Ray Hevern is still living in accommodation paid for by the church.
WA's emergency warning system has been overhauled to fall in line with national standards. The state's north has just months to get used to a new cyclone alert system before the season kicks in.
Destructive forces of nature, packed with the potential to tear lives and property apart. Now the severity of WA's natural disasters has been made easier to understand.
We have a complex climate in this country, but it's important that we have a simple warning system.
From today, the Emergency WA website will catch up with National Emergency Warning Standards. The change making blue, yellow and red cyclone alerts a thing of the past.
This is a transient country. We have people travelling to Western Australia from other places, and the warning system was different from this state to other states.
Now bushfires, cyclones, floods, storms and heatwave warnings will look like this. 3 colours for 3 warning levels. They'll be in place before, during and after natural disasters, each giving advice on current hazards and how best to respond.
All easy to understand for Western Australians to help keep themselves and their families safe.
But they will receive text messages for emergency warning and also watch and act level warnings as well.
The North's tropical cyclone season typically starts from November. It's hoped locals will be well informed of the changes before then.
The TV campaign, the radio campaign, the print campaign, and indeed letters to residents in affected areas in the northwest have commenced.
Simplifying staying alert to stay alive. Jenny Shon, 7 News.
The Prime Minister has confirmed King Charles and Queen Camilla will visit Australia this October, but a trip to WA won't be on their itinerary. The royal couple plans to visit the ACT and New South Wales. It will be the King's 16th official visit down under and the first since becoming monarch. Premier Roger Cook wrote to the King inviting him to tour WA earlier this year. The opposition claims more than a dozen Pingelly children aren't guaranteed a bus ride to school because the state government's rules say they live too close. Rural and remote WA children must live more than 4.5 kilometres from their school to be eligible for the service. The opposition wants the boundary criteria scrapped.
Be flexible, stop penny pinching when it comes to school buses in our regional areas, and make sure that our students can get access to their local school.
The state government says students living within 4.5 kilometres from school can take the bus if there's room on board and they live on the route. It's been 5 years since one of Australia's largest ever earthquakes struck off the coast of Broome. The 6.6 magnitude quake was felt across thousands of kilometres from Darwin in the Northern Territory down to Esperance in WA's south. Luckily, no one was hurt and there was only minor damage.
During an earthquake, there are 3 things. That is drop, cover and hold on. So to drop to the ground, cover your head and neck with your arms, seeking shelter under a sturdy desk or table, or if you're outside, move to an open space and hold on to that shelter until such time as the shaking stops.
Authorities say there have been 280 earthquakes in WA in the past 12 months alone. That's more than all the other states and territories combined. Aspen Blomfield joins us now for a look at today's weather.
Yeah. Thanks, Ruben. Good evening, everyone. Mostly sunny across WA today. We saw a few clouds about on the southwest coast, but other than that, it was clear blue skies and warm winter temperatures. Let's take a look at our temperatures now. 32 degrees in Broome today, a top of 33 in Fitzroy Crossing. Port Hedland got to a top of 30 degrees, 27 in Exmouth and 25 degrees in Newman, 30 the top in Marble Bar, I should say. Some cloud about on the Gascoyne coast, 22 the top in Shark Bay. Geraldton sitting around 18 degrees this afternoon. Cool start to the morning in Kalgoorlie, just 5 degrees, warming up to 17 over the course of the day. Some cloud cover there as well. Onto the southwest now, sunny and 20 degrees in Busselton, 19 I should say, the top in Bridgetown. Esperance, mostly sunny and 17 degrees this afternoon. Overnight temperatures in Southern Cross dropping down to just 5 degrees, 10 in Lake Grace. Warming up over the course of the day, 19 in Lake Grace, 20 the top in Southern Cross, Esperance 17. Ravensthorpe got to a top of 18 degrees. Now a cold front is on the way over the next few days. That should bring gusty winds and showers over the next few days, particularly for the southwest coast. I'll have all the details on that a little later on in the bulletin.
Thanks, Aspen. Coming up in tonight's news, an emergency dash for a sea snake bite and what WA is doing to ease the national truckie shortage.
We're looking for Australia's best short story. Send us your story and you could win a share of $80,000, including a $50,000 first prize. Enter before August 12th at bestaustralianyarn.com.au.
There has been a sky-high medical evacuation off a fishing trawler in our north. A crewman was winched onto a life flight rescue helicopter this morning after he was bitten by a sea snake. It happened in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, about 360 kilometres southwest of Darwin. The man in his 30s was flown to the Kimberley's Truscott Air Base before the Royal Flying Doctor Service transferred him to Broome for treatment. An Albany councillor has been ordered to take training after making controversial comments. In the February council meeting, Thomas Brough linked the LGBTQI+ community with pedophiles. The comments sparked criticism from community members, including Albany Pride. He has since apologised for the hurt caused and is now a candidate for the WA Liberal Party. Brough will complete workplace training as directed by the city. New data shows Australia needs 26,000 more truck drivers to meet consumer demand. WA is expanding training opportunities for regional workers, but more needs to be done.
Across Australia, this is the most popular way of moving goods, getting food from the paddock to our pantry and shopping from the warehouse to our wardrobe. But consumer habits are in for a shock as the industry reports a shortage of more than 20,000 drivers.
Or every time you go into a supermarket or every parcel that is delivered to you, it gets there by road transport and someone has driven it there.
In WA, it's estimated we're roughly 4,000 drivers short, not just behind the wheel of road trains, but delivery drivers and waste collectors too.
I've had an owner of a company with a really bad back. He's had to jump in behind the truck to meet that demand. And he's not unique.
Western Roads Federation says WA has been working to address the shortage since 2019. A program with TAFE has already seen 750 drivers trained.
It's going through Albany, which is just going gangbusters in the last couple of courses. It's in Esperance, about to start Katanning, Geraldton. We're rolling it up through the Kimberley in due course.
It says our regions should also diversify transport to air, rail and sea options. But in the meantime, it's down to consumers to adjust to the change.
Going to have to be better planners. Whatever we were going to buy online or in the shop, we might have to have a plan B, C, D, E and F.
Grace Armstrong, 7 News.
Busselton is on track to become an open water swimming hotspot. Today, the state announced the city will host next year's Australian Open Water Championship, as well as the Ocean Swim Festival. For the past 2 years, the event has attracted more than 4,000 visitors, generating $4.5 million for the local economy. And now, with direct flights from over east, the city hopes to attract even more spectators.
Where else in the world have you got nearly 4 kilometres of viewing space? So there's all that you can watch a whole race for that distance and have the swimmers within metres of you. There's nowhere else in the world that does that.
The event will be held in January as Australia's top swimmers compete for a spot in the International Ocean Swimming Competition. Warraloo Prison Farm has had a special visit from iconic Indigenous entertainer Ernie Dingo. The Yamagi man was there for the official naming ceremony and opening of the revitalised cultural area. The farm, now known by a new name meaning Magpie Dreaming, was restored by prisoners and will serve as a space of reflection. Mr. Dingo was able to have a yarn with the boys and share his strong connection with the area.
Having the union of black and white in the one place in the significance of the bird. The bird in this area is the magpie is called Gulbity, and so having that as a name is great.
The space was built using stonemasonry techniques and features 6 totems, a fire pit and feature walls. Still ahead in tonight's news, the state's junior surfing champions crowned, and we'll find out the next big challenge for Bunbury's underwater hockey players. Underwater hockey players from the state's southwest will represent Australia at the Age Group World Championships. Swimmers from Bunbury, Collie and Margaret River will travel to Kuala Lumpur as part of the Australian national squad.
It's probably not a sport you've heard of, but the competition for underwater hockey is fast and furious.
Very fast-paced sport, especially when it's played at an elite like national or international level.
Each side has 6 players, with another 10 on the sub-in bench. Players use racket-like sticks to hit a puck, similar to ice hockey, from one end of the pool to another.
There is no air tanks, which is a common misconception about the sport. We'll swim along the bottom and try to pass it between teammates into the goal tray at the opposite end.
Now, these young swimmers will be travelling to Kuala Lumpur to represent Australia in the Underwater Hockey Age Group World Championships from the 16th to the 27th of July.
It feels pretty crazy to believe that I'm playing for Australia already. It's pretty cool how I get to experience this.
It's really exciting, but it's also really scary because obviously we've not really played any of these teams before.
Well, it may be the first time representing Australia for some of these young swimmers. Hope and confidence is high. WA Southwest has a history of producing some of Australia's best underwater hockey players.
We've played states 4 or 5 times. This is our first time playing internationally.
Pretty excited. The area produces a lot of Australian players. 8 out of the 12 in the Australian under-19 women's team are from Western Australia, and of those 8, there's 6 from the southwest of WA here.
Josiah McMeekin, 7 News.
Southwest have taken out the winners of the Country Footy Championships after a nail-biting grand final. Southwest lost to last year's champions Avon in the early round, but rallied to overcome them when it mattered.
It was a really good feeling in the end. Obviously, it was a hard-fought game. We started really well and thought we had the game on terms, and then to Avon's credit, they took the game away from us and we had to reset at half-time, and to our boys' credit, our third quarter was excellent, and then the last quarter was just a bit of a slogfest.
The competition's increasing popularity in the last few years has seen a rapid rise in community support.
And we got so much support from not just the Southwest football, but from Southwest people. We had a great crowd there, families, friends and that. So we were just so grateful that we could share it with everyone.
The best players from the event will be selected to represent Country WA in Adelaide. 6-year state junior surfing champions have been crowned in Geraldton. Young surfers from across WA competed over 3 days in the WA state junior surfing titles. Margaret River's Ruby Berry claimed victory in the under-18 junior girls division, while Maverick Wilson from Dunsborough took home the gold in the under-18 junior boys division. Kate Martin from Dunsborough finished top of the under-16 boys, with Olive Hardy from Margaret River taking it home for the girls. And in the under-14s, Paige Hayward from Margaret River took it home for the girls, and Geraldton's Cruz McDonald for the boys. Aspen Blomfield has your weather next. Then coming up with Sue and Rick, Donald Trump defiantly presses on with the Republican convention. Plus, Joe Biden's rare Oval Office address calling for America to cool down.
Rains over much of the state tomorrow, keeping temperatures mild and dry. A cold front will bring gusty rain to the southwest coast on Wednesday. Cold starts to much of the interior with temperatures dropping below winter averages. As you can see, we're also looking at quite a bit of cloud cover around the Bunbury area. Thursday, we'll see significant rainfall for the southeast. Up to 25 millimetres of rain is forecast for both Bunbury and Busselton. The end of our working week looks mostly similar with that front reaching the Gascoyne coast. As we can see, that band of cloud is stretching all the way across the country through to Victoria and Tasmania. Time to take a look, at tomorrow's forecast. Temperatures in the late 20s and early 30s across the Kimberley. Wind gusts up to 40 kilometres per hour in Port Hedland. Mostly sunny further south. 25 degrees in Tom Price. 26 the top in Exmouth and 23 for Newman. Clear blue skies across the Gascoyne coast tomorrow. 26 degrees in Carnarvon. 22 the top in Mount Magnet. Classic winter's day up in Geraldton, 23 degrees, in the afternoon. The southwest looks mostly similar. Cool start to the morning in Collie, just 3 degrees there. Daytime temperatures barely reaching 20 degrees across the board, 20 the top in Albany. 19 degrees in Southern Cross tomorrow with a cool start to the morning, just 5 degrees. Medium chance of showers in Eucla with a top of 15 degrees, 17 and partly cloudy in Kalgoorlie tomorrow as well. On the waters now, seas around 1 to 2 metres in the north, 3 metre swell on the Gascoyne coast. Variable winds off the West Kimberley coast, we couldn't even fit it in the box there. Seas and swells 1 to 3 metres down south, 20 knots off the Bunbury coast. Similar conditions in the southwest, 3 metre swell off Albany. Time to take a look at the national picture though. A cold front has swept through much of the east coast across Victoria and New South Wales, bringing snow to our alpine areas. Orange, around 3 hours west of Sydney, recorded some snow flurries, 16 the top in Sydney, 14 and showers in Melbourne, 14 the top in Adelaide, 32 and mostly sunny in Darwin with a top of 27 degrees for far north Queensland.
Okay, thanks, Aspen. That's a look at our local news, sport and weather for today. To see any of our reports again, go to 7 Plus online or on your smartphone. 7 News from Perth is next. For now, good night, Western Australia.